Hello and welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're doing something, well, something necessary. We're stepping into a room that, if we're all being totally honest with ourselves, most of us would do absolutely anything to avoid walking into.
Hmm?
We are talking about the room with the casket, we're diving deep into the content curated for the funeral channel, and we're stripping away the euphemisms today.
It really is the one appointment on the calendar that absolutely nobody wants to keep, isn't it?
It really is. And I want to set the tone right here at the top because I know even just hearing the word funeral can make people tense up.
Oh, yeah.
This is a judgment-free zone. This is a safe space because what we're about to discuss, death, funerals, and that agonizingly high-stakes moment where you have to open your mouth and speak to someone whose life has just imploded is, well, it's terrifying.
It is.
We're going to be talking about why we say the things we say, why we get it so wrong so often, and how we can actually be useful when the worst happens.
And I think terrifying is exactly the right word. It's a completely universal anxiety. You're standing there, you're watching a friend or a family member who is in absolute ruins, and you feel this immense pressure to fix it,
Yes.
or at least the pressure not to break it any further.
Exactly. It's that feeling of holding a delicate glass vase that's already cracked, and you're just terrified that your own breath is going to be the thing that shatters it completely.
Mm.
And usually that pressure leads us to say something, I don't know, incredibly stupid. But today isn't just going to be a list of don'ts. We're not just here to scold people for bad etiquette.
No, not at all.
We're looking at the mechanism of it. We're going to look at the neurobiology of why a careless comment at a funeral can stick in someone's brain for 20 years.
For decades, yeah.
We're going to look at the psychology behind our own awkwardness. I mean, why do we resort to cliches? And then we're going to take a pretty extensive tour around the world to see how other cultures handle this very delicate art of saying goodbye.
It's a really fascinating journey. And frankly, the whole mission of this deep dive is to arm you. We want to replace that paralysis you feel in the receiving line with a toolkit.
Yes.
We want you to understand the architecture of grief so you can actually navigate it without, tripping over the furniture.
Right. We want you to be the person who knows how to show up. And speaking of being prepared, I have to mention that throughout our research for this, we kept bumping into resources from the funeral program site. We're going to reference some of their insights on logistics today, but I just want to flag them as a genuinely helpful educational resource. If you're currently in that position of having to plan a service, or maybe you just want to understand the mechanics so you aren't blindsided by the details, they're just a great place to get some clarity.
Oh, absolutely. The logistics can be just as overwhelming as the emotions, So
Yeah.
having a map somewhere to go to understand what a program should look like or what the order of service usually entails, that's crucial. It just removes one layer of stress from a very, very stressful time.
Okay, so let's get into the emotional thick of it. Let's talk about receiving line anxiety.
Receiving line anxiety, yes.
Yeah.
It's a very real phenomenon.
I think everyone listening knows this feeling. You're at the funeral home. The line is moving so slowly. You're inching closer and closer to the widow, or God forbid, the parents who just lost a child.
Right.
Your palms are sweating. You're rehearsing lines in your head. Do I say, I'm sorry? Do I say nothing? Do I hug them? Why is this one specific social interaction so physically panic-inducing?
It's because the stakes feel existential. I mean, in normal social interactions, a party, a business meeting, if you make a faux pas, it's just embarrassing.
Right. You spill a drink, you forgot a name, you move on.
Exactly. You move on. But at a funeral, if you make a mistake, it feels like a violation. You're terrified of causing more pain to someone who is already at their absolute maximum capacity for suffering.
It feels like walking on a tightrope over a canyon.
It is. And the research shows that this fear isn't unfounded. People do remember. In fact, they remember with a level of precision that is, well, it's biologically unusual.
See, this was the part of the research that really, really grabbed me. We have this source material titled The Persistence of Memory and Language in Bereavement. It dives into the neurobiology of why funeral memories are so sticky. Now, usually my life is a blur. I don't remember what I had for lunch last Tuesday.
Right.
But I can remember word for word what someone said to me at a funeral 15 years ago. Why is that?
It all comes down to how the human brain processes high arousal emotions. We had to look at the difference between what we call routine memory and traumatic encoding.
Okay.
Under normal circumstances, your brain is efficient. It's kind of a lazy editor. It discards the mundane details, the lunch, the commute, the weather, because they just aren't relevant to your survival.
Right. It's just freeing up hard drive space. It's
Yeah.
like it deletes the spam folder automatically.
Exactly that. But when you are in a state of acute grief or shock, your brain enters what neuroscientists call an integrated state.
Okay, let's stop and really unpack this because integrated state sounds like a corporate buzzword, but I know it means something very specific happening inside our skulls. What is physically happening?
Think of your brain like an orchestra. So usually the different sections are just warming up, doing their own thing. The violins are over here chatting. The percussion is tuning up. The woodwinds are trying to find their sheet music.
Right, they're not working in unison.
Not at all. That's your brain on a normal Tuesday. But in an integrated state, emotional arousal acts as the conductor.
Ah, the conductor steps up to the podium.
The conductor raises the baton, and suddenly 3 very distinct parts of the brain snap into perfect, chilling sync.
And who are the players in this trio?
You've got the amygdala, which is your threat detection center. It handles fear, intense emotion. It's basically the alarm bell.
Okay.
Then you have the hippocampus, which handles the context of memory, the who, what, where. It's the brain's archivist.
The archivist. I like that.
And finally, you have the prefrontal cortex, which handles interpretation and meaning-making. It's the analyst.
So normally these three are kind of debating each other or working on different tasks, but in grief, they lock arms.
They fuse. The conductor, that high emotional arousal, signals to the entire brain system. This moment is critical for survival. Record everything. Do not delete a single file.
So it's not just recording in standard definition, it's recording in 4K.
Higher than 4K. It's recording the sensory data at a completely raw level. It's not just recording the fact that, say, Uncle Bob died.
Right.
It's recording the smell of the floor wax in the funeral home. It's recording the scratchiness of the wool coat you were hugging. It's recording the way the light hit the dust motes floating in the air. And crucially for our discussion, it is recording the exact syntax of the words that were spoken to you.
Wow. That explains that flashbulb quality. I was reading about the elements of these flashbulb memories in the research, and it broke it down into 4 specific pillars: place, informant, affect, and sensory detail.
All right, let's look at those for a second. Place is the spatial anchor. I was standing right by the door. You remember exactly where your feet were planted on the carpet.
Mm-hmm.
Informant is who delivered the news or the comment. This links the memory to your social web, to your relationships. Affect is the emotional weight, that gut punch you felt. And sensory detail is that photographic texture we were just talking about.
But there's a dark side to this recording process, isn't there? The brain doesn't just record everything equally. It has a bias.
Negativity bias.
Yeah.
This is evolutionary psychology 101.
We're wired to remember the bad stuff more than the good stuff, is that it?
We are, because for our ancestors, the bad stuff is what kills you. Or, in a social context, the bad stuff is what leads to exile from the tribe.
Okay.
Your brain is designed to prioritize the recording of social threats or failures of communal support. So if someone says something cruel or insensitive to you at a funeral, your amygdala tags that comment as an attack. It says, this person is unsafe. This tribe is failing to support me in a moment of crisis. Remember this so we do not get hurt like this again.
Well, that's just terrifying for the person who's trying to offer condolences. If I say the wrong thing, I am literally being burned into their long-term memory as a social threat.
Potentially, yes. And you have to remember the physiological state the grieving person is in. They're often dissociated, they're numb. They almost always describe it as a fog.
Oh, I felt that fog. It's like the whole world is underwater, everything is slower, sounds are muffled.
Exactly. And when you're in that fog, you're grasping for anything solid to hold on to. Words cut through that fog. If the words are kind and grounding, they can be a lifeline. They're like a hand reaching out to pull you to shore.
Okay.
But if the words are clumsy, dismissive, or cruel, they become the only solid thing in a world that feels completely unreal. They become a jagged rock that the person just crashes into over and over again.
Well, if that doesn't raise the stakes for this conversation, I don't know what will. So we've established that the brain is a high-fidelity recording device during grief, and it's specifically tuned to detect, well, bullshit.
A very poetic way to put it, but yes,
Yeah.
that is exactly what's happening.
So let's save our listeners from becoming that negative flashbulb memory. We need to talk about the anatomy of a platitude. We have a list here, curated from Georgia Cremation and the Better Health Channel, of the big six phrases to avoid. And honestly, looking at this list, I'm guilty. I think I said at least 3 of these in my life.
Oh, most of us have. And that's really important to acknowledge before we start tearing these apart. We don't say these things because we're malicious.
Right.
We don't wake up in the morning thinking, you know what, I'm going to go hurt my grieving friend today.
Yeah.
We say them because we're anxious and we're
Yeah.
just reaching for a script. We want a magic spell that makes the pain go away.
It's a total panic response. Okay, but let's dissect why they fail so badly. What's number 1 on the hit list?
Number 1 is the heavy hitter. It was all part of God's plan. Or the equally common variation, God never gives us more than we can handle.
Oof. Yeah, this is ubiquitous. And I can see how someone might think this is comforting, especially if they themselves are deeply religious. They're trying to offer some kind of spiritual context. So why does the source material say this backfires so hard?
Because it completely minimizes the immediate visceral sadness. Even for a deeply religious person, hearing that this tragedy is a plan can feel like their pain is being dismissed.
Yeah.
It frames the death as just a logistical necessity for some higher purpose, which, in that moment of acute loss, feels incredibly cruel.
It's like saying your immense suffering is just a line item on a cosmic spreadsheet.
Right, it can feel like abandonment by the divine. And that second part, God never gives us more than we can handle, is actually psychologically destructive.
Because if I feel like I can't handle it, which I probably do if I've just lost my child or my spouse, then what does that say about me? Am I a failure?
It implies that your collapse is a spiritual failure. It suggests that if you were just stronger or had more faith, you wouldn't be falling apart like this. So now on top of your grief, you have guilt. You have a profound sense of inadequacy. You feel like you are failing God's test.
That is a toxic cocktail. Grief plus guilt. That equals disaster. Okay, next one. He's in a better place now.
This creates a massive internal conflict.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, for a non-believer, it's devastating because it just rings completely false. It's a point of friction.
Sure.
But even for a believer, it creates a dichotomy.
The dichotomy being, he's happy up in heaven, so why are you down here being sad?
Precisely. If they are in a better place, enjoying eternal bliss, then your tears seem selfish. It invalidates the pain of the person left behind. It's almost like saying, why aren't you happy for them? It rushes the griever. It forces them to look at the silver lining when they are still drowning in the storm.
It's classic spiritual bypassing. It's jumping straight to the resurrection before you've even sat in the tomb for a minute.
That's a perfect way to describe it. You are skipping the hard part because you are uncomfortable with the hard part.
Okay, number 3 is a big personal pet peeve of mine, even before I read the research. I know how you feel.
Ugh. The sheer arrogance of this statement is what stings. The reality is, you don't. You cannot. Grief is a fingerprint. It is entirely unique to the specific relationship between the deceased and the bereaved.
Even if the loss looks the same on paper. Say, we both lost our dads at age 50.
Even then, if you lost your mother and I lost my mother, our relationships with our mothers were different. Maybe your relationship was warm and fuzzy. Maybe mine was complicated and abusive. Maybe you were their caretaker. Maybe I was estranged.
Mm-hmm.
Our grief will be radically, fundamentally different.
Right.
When you say, I know how you feel, you are taking the microphone away from the griever and pointing it directly at yourself.
It becomes a conversation about your loss, not theirs. You're actually asking them to comfort you and validate your experience.
Exactly. You've just made the funeral about you. You've hijacked the entire narrative.
Okay, number 4. How are you doing? Now wait, this seems like a normal human question. It's polite. Why is this on the don't say list?
Context is everything. In a grocery store line, how are you is a simple greeting. In a funeral setting, it's what the sources classify as a dumb question.
Because the answer is so obvious.
The answer is, I'm miserable, I'm devastated, I'm terrified, or I'm completely numb. But our social norms dictate that we can't scream that in a receiving line. So when you ask, how are you are forcing the grieving person to perform wellness for you.
Oh, wow.
You're forcing them to lie to you, I'm hanging in there, I'm okay, just to make you feel comfortable.
You're giving them a chore. You're asking them to manage your anxiety about their grief by pretending they aren't falling apart.
Precisely. It's absolutely exhausting for them. They have to put on that same mask for every single person who asks that question.
Number 5, life goes on.
Technically true.
Yeah.
Emotionally false. To the grieving person, life has stopped. The world as they knew it has ended. The sun coming up the next morning feels like a personal insult. Telling them life goes on feels like you're rushing them towards a future they aren't remotely ready to inhabit yet. It feels like you're dismissing the sheer magnitude of the event.
It's like telling someone whose house just burned down to the ground, well, there are other houses.
It's exactly like that.
Oh.
It minimizes the specific, irreplaceable nature of what was lost.
And the last one, number 6, the whole category of at least statements. At least they lived a long life. At least they aren't suffering anymore. At least you have other children.
There is no at least in grief. Brené Brown talks about this extensively. You cannot silver lining someone's pain, at least as a mechanism of measurement. It suggests that their grief should be quantified.
Right.
Oh, it's only a level 4 grief because they were 90 years old, so you should feel 60% better.
Like there's some kind of rubric for how much you're allowed to cry.
No. Loss is loss. When you say at least, you are trying to drive a wedge between the person and their pain. You're trying to tidy it up. But grief isn't tidy, it's messy, and it's chaotic.
So why do we do this? I mean, why do we have this whole arsenal of parable phrases that we just fire off automatically? We aren't bad people. Why are we so bad at this? The notes mention something called terror management theory. That sounds incredibly intense for a deep dive like this.
It is intense, but it explains so much of human behavior. Terror management theory, or TMT, suggests that the driving force behind much of human culture is a subconscious, paralyzing fear of death.
Okay.
We spend our whole lives building these elaborate structures, careers, religions, legacies, to deny the simple fact that we are biological organisms that will one day rot.
We're just trying to distract ourselves from the inevitable.
Right. Now imagine attending a funeral. That distraction is completely stripped away. You're looking at a coffin, you might be looking at a dead body, your own mortality is staring you right in the face, your internal terror is activated.
So we're freaking out internally. We aren't just sad for our friend, we're actually scared for ourselves.
We are terrified. So we use these platitudes as anxiety buffers. We use these prepackaged scripts to shield ourselves from the raw, unfiltered reality of death. When I say he's in a better place, I'm really trying to convince myself that death isn't so scary. I'm trying to soothe my own existential dread.
Wow. So the speaker is standing in what you might call the sun of a solution. It's God's plan, it's okay, look at the bright side, while the griever's in the dark pit of despair. And instead of climbing down into the pit to sit with them, we just shout happy things from the top to keep the darkness away from us.
That is a perfect analogy. It is a distancing mechanism. We are protecting ourselves at the expense of connecting with the griever. We are prioritizing our own comfort over their reality.
That also ties into the whole language aspect, doesn't it? The sources were very critical of the word loss.
Yes, loss is a euphemism. It implies something that was mislaid. I lost my keys. I lost my phone. Those things can be found. They're temporary inconveniences. Death is permanent. The sources argue for the power of direct language. Died. Death.
It sounds so harsh to our modern ears. We love our soft language. Passed away, went home to be with the Lord.
It sounds harsh, but it honors the reality of the situation. It validates the magnitude of the event. When you use direct language, you're saying, I see what happened. I'm not afraid to look at it with you.
And then on the extreme end of language failure, we have medical trauma language. This was heartbreaking to read about. The sources mention terms used in hospitals, particularly around child loss or stillbirth, like products of conception or fetal demise.
That is where clinical accuracy becomes emotional cruelty. Imagine a mother who has named her baby, who has imagined an entire future for that child, hearing a doctor refer to them as products of conception. It completely dehumanizes a person into a medical event. It strips away all of their humanity.
Words really do frame our reality. If you use sterile words, you create a sterile reality. If you use evasive words, you create a confusing reality.
Exactly. And the grieving person needs their reality to be witnessed, not sanitized.
Okay, so we've now thoroughly terrified our listener that everything they could possibly say is wrong. We've established that our brains are pretty much wired to mess this up. Let's pivot to what actually helps, because we don't want people to just stay silent and hide in the corner.
No, absolutely not. That's the worst outcome. Total silence, total avoidance, that feels like abandonment.
Yeah.
That confirms the griever's deepest fear, which is, my grief is too much for people to handle. That is how friendships end after a death.
So let's talk about the call me trap. Let me know if you need anything. I've said it. We've all said it. It feels generous. Why is it a trap?
It's so well intended, but it places the entire burden of project management on the person with the least capacity to handle it. Think about the cognitive load of a grieving person. Their executive function is completely shot.
Right.
When you say, let me know if you need anything, You are asking them to perform 4 distinct, difficult tasks. First, they have to scan their entire life and identify a specific need. Do I need food? Do I need a ride? Does the lawn need mowing?
Which is hard when you can't even remember to put on pants in the morning.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Second, they have to decide who among their dozens of friends is the right person to ask for that specific thing. Can I ask Susan for money? Can I ask Mike to mow the lawn? Third, they have to overcome the immense social shame and the fear of being a burden. And fourth, after all that, they have to actually pick up the phone, call you, and make the request.
They don't have the energy for that. They can barely brush their teeth.
Exactly. So they say nothing. And you sit at home thinking, well, they must be okay because they haven't called. And meanwhile, they are absolutely drowning.
So what's the alternative? How do we bypass that executive dysfunction?
The pivot to action. Specificity is love. We call this presumptive helping. You identify a likely need and you just fill it with an opt-out clause rather than an opt-in clause.
Give me an example. Walk us through a good script.
Instead of, let me know if you need food, you text them and say, I am making a lasagna. I am going to bring it over on Thursday around 6 p.m. and leave it on your porch. If another day is better, just let me know.
So you use the unless I hear otherwise model.
Right. You remove the decision-making from them. They don't have to ask. They just have to accept. Or, if they really don't want it, they can send a one-word text back. Friday. Simple.
I love that. What about some non-food examples? Because eventually people start to drown in casseroles. There is only so much pasta a grieving family can possibly eat.
I'd love to take your dog for a walk every morning this week. I'll swing by at 8 a.m. and grab him from the yard. You don't even have to come to the door.
Oh, that's huge. You're giving them 30 minutes of silence and solving a problem they didn't have the energy to even think about.
Or for a caregiver. I can sit with your dad for 2 hours on Saturday so you can go shower and take a long nap. I'll bring a book. I won't bother him at all.
Yeah.
You are identifying a pain point, which is exhaustion, and you are treating it directly.
And instead of the dreaded, how are you, what should we be asking?
Cry, how are you holding up today?
Ah, the time boundary.
It makes it manageable. How are you? Covers their entire life. How are you today? Just covers the last 12 hours. Or you can say, do you need anything from me right now? Or even better, just, it's good to see you.
It's good to see you. That's so simple. It just affirms their presence. It just says, I see you, and I'm so glad you are still here. Now, are there any safe phrases? If I'm in that receiving line and I only have 10 seconds, what can I say that won't trigger a trauma response?
There are a few universal acknowledgments that work very well. I'm so sorry for your loss is a classic for a reason. It's safe, it's neutral, and if you say it with sincerity, it lands well. It doesn't try to fix anything.
Okay. What about honesty? Can I just admit that I'm flailing?
Absolutely. This is incredibly powerful. Saying something like, I want to be helpful, but I honestly don't know what to say. I just want you to know that I care.
That feels really vulnerable.
It is. And it validates the difficulty of the situation. It puts you in the pit with them. You're saying, this sucks, and I don't have any magic words, but I'm standing right here with you. That is connection. That is honesty.
An affirmation.
Huge. I loved him. She mattered so much to me. He helped me so much in my career. You have no idea. These statements affirm the deceased's impact on the world. Families love hearing news stories. They want to know that their person didn't just disappear, that they left a real mark.
And sometimes the best thing to say is nothing at all.
Presence is a language. Being a willing ear, letting them cry, letting them sit in total silence, letting them be angry without you trying to fix it, just sitting there. We call it holding space.
It's that old Quaker idea of bearing witness.
Yes. People often remember the friend who just came over, sat on the couch, drank a coffee, and didn't demand any conversation. He didn't say much, but he stayed. That is often the most profound comfort you can offer.
That's really beautiful. Now, everything we've just discussed is viewed through a relatively specific Western lens. But this gets even more complex and more fascinating when we step outside of our own cultural bubble. We live in a global world. Finding the right words changes dramatically depending on the background of the family you're visiting.
It does. Cultural intelligence is absolutely vital here. While grief is a universal human emotion, the neurobiology, the amygdala firing, the tears are all the same. The expression of grief and the etiquette around it varies wildly. What is respectful in one culture might be deeply offensive in another.
Let's look at Western traditions first, just to set a baseline. We've been critiquing them, but what are the core values we're working with?
Generally, Western traditions, and of course we're generalizing here, they tend to focus on the individual. It's about achieving closure, which, by the way, is a contentious term that many psychologists absolutely hate
Oh, really? Why do they hate it?
because it implies a door shutting. It implies you finish grief and it's over. But the rituals reflect that idea, viewing the body to accept reality, sending flowers as a visual tribute, eulogies that highlight the individual achievements of the deceased. It's very much about the biography of the deceased and the emotional release of the living.
But if we pivot to Chinese and Eastern traditions, the focus shifts completely, doesn't it?
It shifts from individual expression to collective duty. It's about filial piety, shao. It's about maintaining the dignity of the ancestor and the harmony of the group.
I was reading about the phrase Jie Shun Bian. What does that mean?
Yes, it translates roughly to restrain grief and adapt to change, or restrain grief and accept fate.
Restrain grief. That is the polar opposite of the Western let it all out mentality.
It is. In that cultural context, excessive emotion, uncontrollable wailing, collapsing in public can be seen as disrespectful. It might be seen as burdening the spirit of the deceased, making it harder for them to transition peacefully. A somber, composed demeanor is the ultimate sign of respect.
So if I go to a traditional Chinese funeral and I'm sobbing loudly, I'm not actually being supportive.
You might be seen as making a scene or disrupting the harmony of the event. It's not about repressing feeling, but about channeling that feeling into a respectful presence.
And there are specific taboos, right? Like with colors.
Huge.
Yeah.
You avoid the color red at all costs. Red is the color of happiness, of celebration, of good luck, think Lunar New Year.
Right.
Wearing red to a Chinese funeral would be a massive insult. It would look like you were celebrating the death.
Wow. Okay. Note to self, no red ties, no red dresses.
You also have the etiquette of white money, or baibao. Guests offer money in white envelopes to the family to assist with the funeral costs.
This is that practical side again. It keeps coming up.
It is. It's a message. We are here to support you financially so you can honor your ancestor properly. It's not considered gauche. It's expected. It's community care in action.
And another phrase I saw was, Bijian Changshan, take care of your body.
Yes. It's a very common and loving thing to say to the bereaved. It's a way of showing love to the living. Do not destroy your health with your grief. It's very pragmatic. You must survive this.
Let's move to Islamic traditions. What is the core focus there?
Submission. The root of the word Islam is submission to the divine. The central concept is that life is temporary, it's a loan from God, and when someone dies, we are simply returning that loan. The key phrase you will hear everywhere is, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi rajiun.
Which means we belong to God and to Him we shall return.
Exactly. It frames the death immediately within a divine context. It reminds everyone of the bigger picture. It's a grounding mantra for the entire community.
And the specific condolences reflect that.
Yes. You might say, Allah irahmo, may Allah have mercy on him, or Allah yasabarakum, may Allah grant you patience. Patience, Sabah, is a key virtue in Islamic mourning. It's not about getting over it, but about having the spiritual stamina to endure the loss with grace.
And the timeline is different too, right? It's much faster.
Much faster. Burial usually happens within 24 hours of death. And traditionally, the official mourning period is very structured. It lasts for 3 days. It's a time for the community to come together, to pray, and to feed the family so they don't have to worry about a thing.
I read something interesting about flowers in this context.
Yes, in some more strict traditions, elaborate flowers are discouraged. They can be seen as wasteful or ostentatious. The idea is that the money would be better spent on charity, sadaqah, in the name of the deceased. The focus should always be on prayer and simplicity, not on a big display of wealth.
That is really good to know. Sending a massive, expensive bouquet might actually be a faux pas.
It could be. Bringing food is always safer, or making a charitable donation in their name.
What about Latino and Spanish traditions?
This is one of my favorites because of the incredible warmth and physicality. The focus is on solidarity and accompaniment.
There's a specific phrase for that, isn't there? Te acompaño en tu sentimiento.
I accompany you in your feeling. Or more simply, I am with you in your grief. It's not, I know how you feel. It's, I am walking beside you on this path.
That is so profound. It's literally placing yourself in the journey with them.
Yes. Physical presence is paramount. You show up, you stay for a long time. The wake, velorio, can go on for hours, often late into the night. It's very communal. There's also often a strong religious connection. Rezaré por ti, I will pray for you, and affirming the person's worth. Fue una gran persona. He or she was a great person.
And briefly, let's touch on Jewish traditions.
The classic phrase, which is just beautiful, is, may their memory be for a blessing.
I love that. It's so active.
It shifts the focus to the legacy. It implies that the pain of the loss is balanced by the blessing of having known them. And the rituals, citing Shiva, are so heavily structured to force community support. You don't have to ask people to come over. The ritual demands that they come over for 7 days straight.
It solves the call me trap by its very design.
Exactly. The culture builds the support structure for you so the individual doesn't have to. The door is unlocked. People just come in, they bring food, they sit on low stools. It is a brilliant psychological mechanism for ensuring that nobody has to grieve alone.
It really shows that if you're attending a service outside your own culture, just a little bit of homework goes such a long way.
It does. And if you don't know, it's okay to ask. Or just stick to the universal, I am so sorry for your loss, and observe what others are doing. Follow the lead of the family. If they are quiet and somber, you be quiet and somber. If they're sharing funny stories, it's okay for you to share a story.
So we've covered the words, we've covered the cultures, but I want to talk about the event itself, the ritual. Why do we put ourselves through this? Funerals are expensive, they're exhausting, they're physically uncomfortable, they're awkward. Why do we gather? Why don't we just send an email and be done with it?
Because the alternative is trauma. And we have a massive tragic data set on this now, thanks to the pandemic.
The era of Zoom funerals.
And the era of no funerals. When people couldn't say goodbye, couldn't view the body, couldn't hug their neighbors, it led to a measurable spike in what psychologists call prolonged grief disorder, or complicated grief.
Because they didn't get that final stamp of reality.
Exactly. The ritual helps move the brain from the state of denial to the state of reality. Seeing the casket, seeing the body, it forces that integrated state we talked about earlier to acknowledge this has really happened. It's painful, but it's necessary pain.
It breaks the delusion.
It does. And attendance matters. We talked about social threats. High attendance validates the bereaved. It says, your person matter. Look at all these people who took time off work, put on a suit, and drove all the way here.
It's a visual metric of a person's value in the world.
Yes. And low attendance, even if it's unavoidable for logistical reasons, can feel like a secondary loss. It can feel like the community is saying, we don't really care.
There's this concept in the notes called the configurational eulogy. I've never heard that term before, but I find it absolutely fascinating. It sounds almost mathematical.
It's a brilliant concept. Think of a person's life like a jigsaw puzzle. You, as the child of the deceased, you hold a big chunk of the pieces. You know Dad. You know Dad at the breakfast table, Dad yelling at the TV, Dad teaching me how to drive.
But I don't know colleague Bob.
Exactly. You don't know the guy who cracked jokes at the water cooler for 30 years. You don't know fishing buddy Bob. You don't know high school sweetheart Bob from 1965.
Right.
So when you go to the funeral and a colleague gets up and tells a story about how your dad saved a big project or played a hilarious prank back in 1995, you are getting a new piece of the puzzle. The community comes together to configure the whole person for you.
It's narrative reconstruction.
It is. And that is deeply, deeply therapeutic. It helps move the memory of the person from a chaotic, painful trauma into a structured, coherent history. It turns he died into he lived, and this is who he was to all of us. It rounds out the character.
So when we share stories, even the funny ones, even the irreverent ones, we're helping the family build a complete picture of their loved one.
You are giving them gifts of memory they didn't even know existed.
That ties into this idea of continuing bonds. I feel like for a long time, the psychological advice, the old Freud era, was get over it, detach, move on, find closure.
That was the old model. We called it the hydraulic model of grief. You have to vent the steam, and then the machine goes back to normal. We know now that it's just complete nonsense.
So what is continuing bonds?
The new model, which is so much healthier, says, we don't get over it. We learn to live with it. We maintain a relationship with the deceased.
Even though they're gone?
Yes. The relationship changes, but it doesn't end. Talking to them, dreaming about them, using their name in conversation, asking, what would Mom do in this situation? That is healthy.
So if I'm talking to my dead father in the car on my way to work, I'm not crazy.
Not at all. You're maintaining the bond. You are keeping them woven into the fabric of your life. Grief isn't linear. It doesn't just end. Anniversaries will always be hard. Birthdays will always be hard, and that's okay.
It feels like the pressure is off when you say that. We don't have to fix it. We just have to learn how to carry it.
We grow around it. There's a famous diagram of grief where you have a jar with a ball inside. The ball of grief never gets smaller, but the jar of life just gets bigger around it.
That's a really powerful image. The jar gets bigger. We expand to hold it. So as we wrap up this deep dive, let's try to distill this. If our listener is driving to a funeral right now, gripping the steering wheel, what should they hold on to?
It is not about being a poet. You do not need the perfect script. You don't need to be profound. The goal is presence. The goal is listening. And the goal is specific, tangible support.
And awkwardness is normal.
Awkwardness is the price of admission for connection. If you feel awkward, it means you're trying. Showing up imperfectly matters so much more than not showing up at all.
And don't say it's God's plan.
Please, just skip that one. Stick to, I'm so sorry, and I'm here for you.
And again, we mentioned them earlier, but if you are the one having to organize all the logistics, the programs, the obituary, the order of service, and you just feel completely overwhelmed by the details, places like the funeral program site can really help with the educational side of things.
Yeah.
Just getting the logistics sorted can clear up so much mental space for the actual grieving.
Absolutely. Reduce the cognitive load wherever you possibly can.
To you listening, if you are currently navigating this, whether you are the one grieving or the one trying to be supportive, please know that you are not alone. That fog you feel, it's a protective mechanism. It is not a failure on your part.
And learning about all this, about the neurobiology, the different cultures, the psychology, it isn't morbid. It's preparation. It's a way to bring a little bit of peace and a little bit of confidence to a moment that eventually every single one of us will face.
By understanding the why we hurt, why we remember, why we gather, we can be softer, we can be kinder, and we can be more present for the people we love. And ultimately, that's all we can really do.
Well said.
Thanks for diving in with us. We'll see you next time.